Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me today in this webinar. My name is Michelle. I am the Teacher Success Coach here at Mangahigh, and you might see emails and messages from me every once in a while to let you know, of course, about the next webinar that's coming up, and perhaps even some tips and hints as to how you can benefit better on Mangahigh. And the plan today really is to give you a head start on making sure that your students have access to their platform, their Mangahigh platform, and also give you some ideas on how to make sure that your students are being really successful. So the types of workflow that we encourage students to have, especially when they're working through Prodigi, and how to develop a growth mindset workflow. And we will wrap up today's session with a quick view of a student and teacher view analytics, give you a sense of the types of data and analytics that we generate for you. And it's really important also to actually discuss the new progress report for our students, so the students themselves can see their own progress through the Mangahigh platform as well. All right, let's start with talking about the admin section, which is where we do all the admin work like adding new classes, adding new students, adding new teachers, etc. So when we are in the admin section, you can see a list of classes that are set up for you already. If you need to print or download any of your students' logins, simply go ahead and click on the class that you're teaching and simply click print. And this will generate a PDF that will have your student's name, their user ID and password, and of course their school ID to access their Mangahigh account. We'll spend a little bit of time later on to take a look at what your students actually see when they log into Mangahigh. But for this part of the presentation, what I really want to talk about is how do you move students from one maths group to another? And this works if your students happen to have changed their class from 7A to 7B, for example, or alternatively, it will also work if you are creating subgroups of your class. Now, before we go ahead and add students to a different class or a subgroup, what we need to do is make sure that subgroup exists. And the way we do this is simply click on plus, and from here we can name our subgroup. So in this case, because I already have a class 3, I'm going to name my class perhaps the class 3 high. So think about the nomenclature of the way that you would start naming your class list so that there is still some reference to the main class. Keeping in mind, students can belong to multiple groups. So in other words, you don't actually have to make a decision as to which one group your students belong in. In fact, I do encourage schools to think about having students in their main group for instances where you might want to assign the same task to the entire class, maybe perhaps a prerequisite task or an entry-level task, and everyone gets to do it before you go ahead and start personalizing into those 3 pathways that exist in your class. So going back to this, basically what we're doing is we've named our class. Okay, let's keep the coding curriculum focus at Foundation 1. I've then said, right, my class 3 is high group is working towards year 5 or year 4. All right, click that. And then in here, now the system needs to register at least 1 student in order to create a class. I know it's a bit of a glitch, but let's work with it. But so I'm going to tick 1 student. So basically the reason why I'm ticking 1 student is because when I click on generate logins, it's going to generate a brand new login. Now I don't want any brand new logins technically, okay, because I am trying to take students from an existing class into this class. All right. So once that's done, now we can go ahead and click on class 3, which is where my main students are. Find the student that you want to move into your modified classes. So let's say we are moving MathStar 1061. Click on there and click on class or change add class and go ahead and say, right, class 3. So this student is currently in class 3 and I'm going to put them into class 3 high. All right. Once we've done that, we click tick and that should keep it going. And again, just go through the list and find other students that you might like to move. So class 3 high, and click save. Okay, so I'm just going to add 1 more student just so that we can look at the example properly. Now, if you do want to remove this student from their main class, of course, just untick that, click tick, and then away they're gone from your main class. Okay, so now when I go ahead and select assign, so when you're ready to assign tasks, What you'll start seeing is when I'm assigning tasks to my Class 3 High, let's click on Assign there. Okay, and I click Assign. You'll see that only those students that you have placed in there will get the assignment. All right, and then you just go ahead and assign task as you normally would. Click Done. And it's just those 4 students that will receive that task. Now, some teachers do ask, oh, well, if I can tick and untick students as I'm setting up tasks, why do I need to create subgroups? Now, the answer is simple. Basically, it's obviously a lot simpler for you to select a class that already has that predetermined subgroup. So when you're assigning, there are those 4 students or those 5 students that you're really wanting to assign to are already pre-populated. The next part of it is actually for the reporting purposes. So reports will start aggregating the reports purely based on how the high groups are going. Okay, so you don't have to go into individual reports and then actually see which students were assigned to that task versus not. This report will be re-aggregated to reflect just those students that you have assigned into that class. Another thing to keep in mind also for the convenience of the students is that, of course, because we have simply moved the students or reallocated them into a different maths group, they still use the same user ID and password, so they're not running around with multiple user ID and password depending on the work that they or the class, modified class that they are belonging to. And this is particularly important in primary schools, especially where you might have students working in their learning support groups versus their main home group. So I hope that helps. Now, one last thing I want to point out in this while we're in the admin screen is you might have noticed some classes where it says ! no maths curriculum focus has been set. What I need you to do is to actually click into your class. On the top right hand corner in the 3 dots menu, click on class settings. All right, where it says maths curriculum focus, go ahead and pick the maths curriculum focus. Now, we will show you when we're in the reporting stage later on, I'll show you what that means. But theoretically, every single class should have a maths curriculum focus. Now, you can always come back in here and actually change it if you feel that it needs to be changed. But it will really help with bringing the curriculum report to life later on as well.